So before we put in some placeholders, meaning just like a frame to take the place of this photo, I want to actually check to see were those adjustments that we made to the gutters actually working right? And they're not. Notice how right here in the gutter, the photo is actually bleeding into the gutter itself. And then over here, the text is actually going into the gutter a little bit. It's cutting it off a little bit. Same thing over there. Let's take a look at the photos. Yeah, the photos here. So what I want to do is I want to go back and let's go ahead and make adjustments to this so that it lines up. The reason I want it to line up is watch this. When I start to drag a box, it will want to snap to one of those guides, which is super useful to lining things up. Problem is, if I end up doing this right here, where I want to line this picture up here, notice in the gutter, photos coming through, and it's coming through down here as well. So let's go ahead and go back in and let's see if we can get this gutter a little bit tighter to that line. It may not work perfectly because the photo that I'm using isn't exactly the same size as the document. So we may not be able to get it perfect, but we should be able to get it much closer. So let's go back over here to layout, margins and columns. And let's go ahead and start to decrease that gutter a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Now the gutter's looking good on this side. It's looking like it's lining up pretty well there. It's not perfect on this side, but that's okay. So what I just did here is we went to layout, margins and columns. Let's go ahead and change the gutter to, let's go ahead and do 5 millimeters and then click OK. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and move this over. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a gray box to cover this photo, and then 3 gray boxes for these photos here. And then we'll put in these 2 darker gray boxes on the sides. So let's start with that. So let's choose the rectangle tool. And let's go ahead and start over here on the left-hand side. Notice that this little crosshairs, I'm going to line the line up, the bottom one, with the edge of the photo. And I'm going to drag this down. And now I'm going to zoom in on it real quick to check to see if it's snapped to that grid line. There we go. And I'm going to change the color temporarily. So I'm going to double click on the fill color, not the stroke, but the fill. And I'm going to come in here under C. I'm going to do 0, 0, 0. I'm going to do 10. There we go. So now it gives me this gray frame. I'm going to do the same thing on this photo right here. So I'm going to zoom in. And this time, like I said, the photo itself, it's kind of cropped oddly. So I'm actually going to extend this all the way to that line. So instead of stopping it right there, I'm actually going to extend it all the way over to here. But I'm going to keep an eye on the bottom and the top to make sure that I have them lined up height-wise. That looks good. All right, I'm going to use the eyedropper. So I'm just going to click here or press the letter I to suck up that gray color I already used. And then here's a little trick. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and then I press the Shift key and I let go. So let's try that again because there's a little bit of finger gymnastics going on. Basically, you could copy and paste. So I just did Control V or Command V and moved that down. Or you can use the Alt key when this is selected. So I'm clicking with my mouse first, then I press the Alt key. Come on. Alt, press with the mouse, then press Shift. It's like a keyboard shortcut, but it takes a little bit to get those finger gymnastics to actually work right. And move those around. The basic idea is just you're copying that and pasting it, and by using the grid lines, they're going to be lined up nice and evenly. All right, so that one looks good. And then let's go ahead and temporarily, I'm going to click on this gray box right here, and I'm going to flip this so it changes it so that there's just the outline, because I still want to see this text here in a minute, and I still want to see how high up to make this box. But with this thing here, it's blocking the stuff underneath. So I'm just going to hide that. So instead of hiding it and deleting it, I'm just going to make it an outline. So now I can click off to the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is we're going to draw this rectangle here with this white stroke, and then there's a little bit of another rectangle in the background. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool, and I'm going to up to here. Oops, too far. Notice what it's doing is it's snapping in these gutters. So I'm going to try it over on this right-hand side. Then I'm going to eyedropper up that color. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to double click on that fill, and I want to make this one darker. So I'm going to do like 25. There we go. And I'm going to zoom in because I just want to check the edges to make sure that's looking good there. Actually, looks like it's a little bit off, but I'm not too worried about that for now. So actually that 25 seems a little light. So let's go ahead and make this a little darker. Let's try like 40. About 50. Yeah, looks good. All right. Now I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste that. I'm going to move this one down. So now it's the one that's there behind there. The problem is if I start doing anything with this one, it's going to block this one. So I want to click on the one that's behind. I'm going to right click and I'm going to arrange, bring to front. So it doesn't look like anything changed, but here's the reason I wanted to do that. I want to put a stroke on this. So I'm going to come over here to stroke. I'm going to make sure that I increase the size of the stroke. So I'm going to do like a 2-point stroke, but right now it's a gray stroke on a gray box. We're going to double click on the stroke and we're going to change this to paper. Let's go ahead and make the stroke a little bit bigger. Let's try like 6. That looks pretty good. All right. Now, zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to do one more series of rectangles again here, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we'll go to the next video. So I'm going to zoom in over here where this eye is, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle right on top of that. Now the color is not there, so I'm going to choose fill, double click, change the K, we'll do like 40. Like I said, these are just placeholders, so it's not super important if the color isn't exactly the same. All right. Now I'm going to come up here and I want to draw this rectangle. And I'm going to use the eyedropper. So I press the letter I. I'm going to click on that one. And then I'm going to copy that and paste it. Move this one over here to line that one up. But this time I'm going to change the color to white. So I'm going to go to K, which is the black, and just change that to 0. And click OK. Zoom out just a little bit. And if you want to see what you've done, turn on the layers and hide temporarily the template. So what you'll notice is here, when I change this one back to the gray color, we now have where the photos were, we have those gray boxes. And while we're at it, actually, no, we're going to leave it at that point. Now, in the next video, we'll add in the text. We'll do these threaded text columns, and then we'll start to talk about what to do with the front page.